Hi, Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Can you hear me, guys?
We can hear you
Yes,
just
we
fine
can.
now. Thank you.
Hey, I can't hear you yet.
Oh, none of us.
Hi there, Alan.
Give me a minute.
उसको आवाज नहीं आ रही देख लो.
Maybe you can hear us. We just don't sound as good as you.
You sound very good, and you're better looking as well. Nice to meet you, Hassan. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Alan. Thank you so much for being on board. It's an absolute pleasure to be able to speak to you.
No problem. Thank you for the invitation. How are you, Ismail? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, is that okay for you? You all right? Yeah, you can see me and I can see you. Okay.
Yes,
Is it Trad? Is that your name?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said it pretty well.
Fantastic. That's great. So,
Okay, so first of all, you've made many fans excited. So thanks for that. Hassan, if you can carry on, I'll go live on Facebook.
एक सेकंड वेट कर लो एलन का.
I think his videos
ठीक है,
currently
नॉट इन देयर
not
लाइव
working.
चला जाता हूँ ना, नॉट इन देयर लाइव आप बात कंटिन्यू.
Okay, Alan, can you hear us?
yes, I can. Fine.
Okay, great. Okay, we just had a little bit of a stop over there. So just before we'll go on. So we're the official Manchester United Supporters Club for Pakistan, Alan. There's 150 paid up members here. We've been an official fan club for 6 years. We got welcomed on board by Mr. Van Gaal when we joined, and every year we've grown. We have screenings across the country. You know, pre-COVID, we would have regular screenings of games, and get lots of fans to come up. And a couple of our fans have also made the journey over to Old Trafford. Obviously, watched the team, heard you on the announcement. It's been great. And we've used this sort of time of lockdown to interact with United fans, United legends, United people who write about United, ex-legends. We spoke to Chucky McClare yesterday, and that was that was amazing. Chucky's something, isn't he?
He is. How did you set that up, by the way? How did that come about?
So Ismail he does not know the understanding. He does not understand the word failure. So Ismail will go and hit them all up. We've also been very lucky to have had a lot of help from ex-United pros like Ben Thornley. Ben's been great for us. He's connected us to Keith Gillespie, David May. So we've always asked everybody we've spoken to please recommend one more person.
We basically reached out to everybody we could, and then we just built on who replied and who didn't.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And to get time from Chucky was amazing, because a lot of the fans out here are much younger. They started following United a lot later, a few of them after Sir Alex's time. So it's our little way of connecting them to the club's history. They learn so much. They're Googling Chucky and they're looking at all the goals, and then he's sitting there resplendent in his beard, telling us the most amazing stories.
Yeah.
It's just been amazing.
How long did you have him on for?
Just a little bit over an hour. I think we would have spoken to him for much longer, but I think he said, I'm done with everything. I've told you everything I've got.
Right.
So.
Okay. Just give me
Alan,
1 minute.
you also had a show with him an hour ago. Yeah, sure.
Just give me 1 minute. I'm just going to let the dog out because he'll start barking.
Yeah, sure.
So I'll be 1 minute. I'll just go off. Yeah.
We finally know who let the dogs out.
Yeah, it's Alan.
Alan also had a show with Chucky a month ago. I was checking his account. No, his personal show.
Yeah. Okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I did, just very quickly, I did a Facebook Live during lockdown. I did it for 11 weeks. I just finished a week last Wednesday because obviously the football was back on. But so each week I tried to have a legend, and I had Chucky McClare on, and he's just, I mean, I only had him on for about 20 minutes, but I could have done the whole show. The show was an hour. But I'll tell you, he's a good guy. Talking of the legends, Sammy McIlroy.
Oh, Sammy's a legend. We'd love for you to put in a word with Sammy, please. If he could come on board and speak to us too, it would be brilliant.
Yeah, I will do. I'll definitely have a word with Sammy for you. So how do you want to play this tonight, guys? Is it going to be just the four of us, or how's it going to work?
Just us, and Ismail will let the fans will have questions for you as well. We're live on Facebook. Want to take this opportunity once again to thank you for taking the time out, coming on board for the fans. You know, you're the voice of more than one generation for all of us. We've been hearing you at Old Trafford over the years. I remember reading an interview of yours in Inside United many years ago. I think when you just started, was it 99, 2000 when you started?
No, it was actually 2000, 2001. It was, this will be my 20th anniversary in August. So I started in the 2000 season, but I was working for the club behind the scenes. I was doing a lot of the corporate hospitality and doing a lot of the match day stuff on the microphone, you know, welcome to Old Trafford. But I did that for 2 years, and then that was my sort of way in. And then I obviously became the announcer in August 2000, and it's been an incredible journey.
So, Alan, who was there before you when you started? What was the system like before yourself?
Yeah, the system, well, funnily enough, just to give you a bit of an overview, my predecessor was a guy called Keith Fain, and Keith had been at United he'd been the announcer for about 10 years before me. So he was doing a brilliant job. But the club just decided wanted to go in a different direction, and you know, I was fortunate enough to be in the right place at the right time. I have to hold my hands up. Obviously, I'm a Manchester United fan and a season ticket holder, but I have worked across the road as well. I did a little bit of time at City, but hey, listen, you know, it's all part of the learning curve, and it was all part of my progression. And I always say this to people because I've lectured at the University of Central Lancashire in the north of England for 20 years. I've just finished before Christmas, and I always said to the students, you have to take every opportunity that comes along, because you don't know where it leads to. You know, a small seed can grow into a big thing. So I was very lucky. But 20 years, Hassan, and it's been an amazing journey.
Absolutely.
Working for City is no problem. Obviously, Ryan Giggs also played for City, but that was for a short while before he became a United legend, like you. So how did the affair with United began?
How did my career?
The love affair with United.
Oh, well, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Well, that's a great start. I mean, I come from an Irish background. So my mother and father came over to the UK from Ireland, looking for a better standard of living and looking to improve their quality of life and get a job and everything else. So I was very fortunate because I was raised in a shop. So I think that's where I got the gift of the gab and talking, because when there was customers coming in and with my mother ran the shop, you know, you had to be polite to the customers. It was a general grocer, and it was very much in the heart of the Irish community at the time in Manchester where it was. I was the youngest of 5 children, and the other 4 were born in Ireland. And my affair with United began through my father because of the Irish connection and Irish players like Georgie Best. Obviously, he was a big influence on a lot of the Irish community. And as a result, he was obviously one of the best footballers in the world. And, you know, with United, he won the European Cup and things like this. So my affair with United began through my father, really, and the Irish connection with the Irish footballers, you know. And obviously it continued as the years went on with, you know, obviously Georgie Best, and then you had Norman Whiteside. You know, the list is endless. Just right across the board, if you look at the Irish players that have played for United, Dennis Irwin, you know, absolutely fantastic. So that was my introduction with Manchester United through my parents, through my father, really, as a good Irishman and the love of George Best.
We've had so many legends on our show, but I think 2 of them were from Northern Ireland. So you're probably the first from Ireland, and the 16th one, obviously. So the first question is on Facebook, and I've been asked, how do you prepare for each game?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because over the time that I've been the announcer, the structure and the format has actually changed, because I think the best way to describe myself would be as an information service. You know, on a match day, I'm informing the fans in the stadium of ticket information. But a big part of my role now is very much the sponsor activity, you know, because United have so many partnerships now that they all want a piece of a game, or, you know, it might be sponsored by HCL or Chevrolet or Adidas or whoever it might be, you know, Cola. So it's very much a big part of the match day now, because obviously, you know, they all want to have the picture taken with a legend at pitch side. They want me to do a special sponsorship read. So the preparation very much takes place well before the game, because during the week, if there's anything that needs to be sort of sent to me that I might have to read or be aware of, United will email it me. I'll put it in my folder for the day, you know, and then it all takes shape. And there is a running order. You know, we have a structure. It might not appear that way, but we do have a structure from when the gates open, or the turnstiles, the music is on. You know, I normally start speaking about an hour before the kickoff. So it was at 3 o'clock kickoff. I'll start speaking just after 2 when we get the team sheet. So, you know, the idea is that not everybody's on social media in the stadium, and we might have some older fans who are not sort of switched onto that side of things. So I'll read out the team straight away, because there's a curfew. You're not allowed to announce the teams until 1 hour before. So whatever you see on any media or anywhere at all, before 1 hour, they're guessing. Okay, it's not the real thing. So you can look at the permutations, and yes, you can see who's getting off the coach, going into the changing room, and have a guess of who's on it. But we're allowed to announce the team 1 hour before. So, you know, there's a lot of preparation, because there's a lot of sort of factors with a match day now. You know, the ticket office want all the ticket information relaying, you know, if there's a game in the FA Cup or the Europa League or Champions League, as might be, and hopefully next season, you know, all that has to be relayed to the fans in the stadium. So, you know, it's a role that's changed over the 20 years, but very enjoyable. I love it.
So, Alan, also, you mentioned about all the information you have to give out to the fans. One thing I've always found interesting is when big rivals come over. I've noticed this a lot when we go to Anfield, or we used to go to Ellen Road, but they tell us to stay back for our own safety and not leave till all the... So do we end up doing the same? Do we tell the other rival fans from big clubs that, look, stay back till the police have made the area safe and our fans have left, especially after a bad result?
Yeah, Hassan. It's not so much the bad result. I mean, obviously, when the big clubs come in, you know, your Cities or Chelsea or Liverpool, or, you know, clubs of that sort of stature, and obviously there has to be a safety aspect as well, you know, because with the fans, and particularly at Old Trafford, because where the away fans park the coaches, when they come out of what's called the East Stand, you're crossing right across the main threshold of the fans leaving Old Trafford. So, you know, they try and sort of make it a bit more quieter. And obviously it's for the safety issues as much as anything. But yeah, we still do that. We keep the fans in for half an hour afterwards and make sure that everybody's safe and sound and get home in one piece. And that's the important thing about it.
So, which announcement do you think fans take to? So you mentioned that you get to know the teams beforehand, so you're allowed to announce them 1 hour before the game. But how long before that do you people actually have access to the team sheet?
Believe it or not, it's not that too far ahead actually. You might have it, if you're lucky, you might get it 15, 20 minutes before. And that'll be the officials, you know, within the club. And people who are on a higher grade than me, they'll have that information, because obviously the away team have to write it on their sheet, and because there's an official sheet that they have to write it down on, and so do United. And then it gets typed out. and it has to be distributed around the stadium. So it has to get to me, so I can hold up the team sheet and go through them both. And if I'm not sure of any of the names, then I always ask the away backroom staff. You know, if there's a pronunciation. Say the other day when we played Sheffield United, you have a player that's called Lys Mousset. Now, you know, he spells his first name Lys. So is it Lys? Is it Lys? Is it, you know, it could be a number of things. So I always check with the away sort of staff how you do the pronunciations, and I write it phonetically. So probably, to answer your question, about 15 minutes before, because of that curfew, it's very important that it's not revealed before that.
Okay, so Alan, obviously you say that when you announce the names, then most fans in the stadium, they don't know who is playing and who isn't. So most of them are relying on the names that you call out. Yeah. Because apparently, according to Pogba, there's no Wi-Fi in the stadium. So how about the fans that don't know the lineups, and then you have to announce a name that's not so popular? How do the fans react, and what's your reaction to it?
Do you mean there's not so popular for the away team?
No, for the home team. So sometimes our support doesn't like a player, for example. I won't name names, but yeah. You know, yeah.
Thank you. Well, I suppose, you know, if I'm to be honest with you, you know, I'd be very disappointed. And I've got to be honest, it's very, very rare that I've heard the United fans, particularly when I'm announcing early doors, where they've ever booed or they've ever sort of been, you know, disrespectful. Yes, some cheerers are louder than others, you know, because at the moment, you know, you mentioned Bruno Fernandes, and the crowd are absolutely brilliant. I mean, this is before lockdown. The crowd are absolutely fantastic, you know. So you mentioned people like Bruno, and it's a brilliant response. You know, yeah, I know what you're saying. Some of the lesser popular players, but I've never really experienced it, particularly when I'm reading it out. You know, where there's been any boos or anything. I honestly can't say I've ever had that reading out the starting lineup. Yeah, obviously some get a bigger cheer than others. I understand that, and that's been the case many times. So it's just the way it goes. But from my point of view, you've got to be professional. You've got to carry on, and you've got to make sure that you know, everything's professional on the day. Reading out the teams. You know, welcome to Old Trafford, the theatre of dreams. You know, the home of the greatest football club in the world, the home of Manchester United. It's all that sort of...
It's all goosebumps. Yeah. If I can ask you, what's it like when a player has been missing for some time? Like the time, for example, I'm thinking Scholesy spent, whether it was after his first retirement and then he's coming back, or someone's coming back after an injury. We see the fans getting really excited to see the player coming back. What's that like, whether it's their name in the starting lineup or whether they're coming on as a substitute? And you feel that the energy is a little bit different when you're announcing them?
Yeah, I think with that, Hassan, you've got a lot. We're all football fans, and whether you're in the stadium or whether you're watching on the TV or whatever, it's about the anticipation, isn't it? And the excitement, you know. And I think, you know, we can use at the moment the example of, say, Pogba and Rashford. You know, there was a lot of excitement with lockdown and 13 weeks without football. You know, we were all looking forward to the Sheffield United game, the anticipation of, you know, that's actually the Spurs game. You know, would Pogba start? Would he not start? What would it be with him and Bruno Fernandes? And, you know, where would Rashford play? Where would Martial play? So there's a lot of anticipation. And, yeah, it's always exciting, Hassan, when you've got that sort of excitement where you're waiting to see, is Ollie going to start with Pogba? And, of course, he didn't do at Spurs, but when he came on, he made a difference. And some of the through balls that he played, and that you know, he gained us the penalty with the tackle by Dyer, and then he started with him against Sheffield United. So yeah, it's all about the anticipation and the excitement. You know, that's what it's all about.
The one that comes to my memory, at least, I remember watching it on the telly, and I could just feel that there was a current across Old Trafford was Falcao when he was coming on. I remember you were getting ready to announce him. It was like fever pitch. It didn't work out. That's a different story. But at that time, there was this anticipation and this unreal feeling that Falcao is our number 9. Do you have any memories from that day?
Yeah. Funnily enough, I do. Yeah, because you know, to introduce a player of his quality and the excitement again within the stadium, and you know, this renowned goal scorer. Yeah, you know, that was incredible. I mean, obviously, you know, when you're introducing a player of his status, you know, there's going to be a lot of anticipation. As you say, it didn't work out for him at Old Trafford. You know, and it's strange, isn't it? Because you can look at certain players at their record and their CV, and you think, yeah, he'll work. He's a man. You know, you say, don't you? He's a United player, blah blah blah, and you know, unfortunately, he didn't work out. Di Maria didn't work out. You know, it's unfortunate. But then you look at Bruno Fernandes, and you can't believe the impact that one player has made. You know, he's taken us to another level. It's absolutely incredible what he's done and the impact that he's done. So he's made, I should say. So yeah, it's exciting times, and it's all great for the fans. They love it, you know. And United, they always want a hero, don't they? United always want a hero, and you know, you could possibly argue it might be early yet, but could Fernandes take the number 7 shirt? You know, because you know, it hasn't really been filled properly since Ronaldo left, has it? You know, and it's been a difficult shirt to wear for some people. It's been a big burden. So, you know, we'll see what happens.
I'm already imagining you saying his name and his number 7 as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the impact is made, and if you think he's come halfway through the season, what's it going to be like next year? You know, when he's got his feet under the table, and he just looks a natural leader to me. He looks like, you know, the very first game that I saw him at Old Trafford, he's bossing the line and he's talking, you know, and I'm very fortunate where I am. I'm pitch side, so I can hear it all and see what's going on, and, you know, the born leader. So you never know, but maybe we're saving it for Sancho. You never know.
So, Alan, I've got two questions actually. The first, you mentioned that, you know, you get the names phonetically spelled out so you don't mispronounce. Has there been any famous incident where you've mispronounced a player's name and they've come up to you after the game to correct you? Also, while we're on the topic of the crowd reacting to player names, how was the reaction when Luis Suarez was announced that he was on the team sheet, when there was all this controversy with Patrice Evra?
Okay, I'll do the easy one first. Yeah, it's always interesting when you're looking at pronunciations, you know, because like Ismail, is that how you say your name?
Yeah, there are 3 or 4 ways, but
yeah,
we say it Ismail.
Ismail, yeah, you see it, yeah. Hassan, or you know, Isra, you know, it's so. But I'll tell you where I had an interesting experience. When I did the voices for FIFA 20, you know, the game. So yeah. I had to go and record in the studio and do every Premier League squad and also every Championship team. So I was in the studio for 4 days recording it, and I'll tell you who stood out at the time, because he wasn't a United player. But if you look back, before he sort of became the world figure that he was in football, but Zlatan Ibrahimovic, that was always a bit of a mouthful, you know. Yeah. So it was always a bit tricky how you would say it, you know, because there's so many sort of connotations with it. So I've had a few tricky ones, and I have to say the Russian names and the Greek names can be a real problem, because particularly the Greek names, you can get 3 connotations for the price of 1. It's all like Papalopoulos, you know, and it's like it's tricky, you know. And I have to hold my hands up. I have got the odd one wrong, you know, but it's very, very, very difficult, you know. But you try and do your research. You speak to the backroom staff. They'll always give you, like I said the other day, you know, I asked one of the backroom coaches how you said Lees Musat's name, you know. And the way he told me, it stayed with me because I don't know if you know the guy or know his name, but you spell it Lys. And the guy said to me, you pronounce it lease, like a car lease.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had no problem and I remembered it, you know. But yeah, names are a tricky thing, and you know, you want to be respectful to the players. I always do my best to announce everybody's name, you know, and I'm sure that I've got a few wrong over the years, but I've always tried to do my best and, as I say, write it phonetically. It's always interesting to go to your second question when you've got rivalries, particularly when it's a Manchester United player who's got the rival, not just the club or the Manchester United team or the football team as such. And it was always interesting because Patrice Evra was loved, wasn't he? You know, Patrice Evra, you know, was absolutely worshipped and still is by the United fans. And to be honest, you know, the thing with Suarez, you know, it was what it is what it was, you know. I mean, obviously you've got the handshake situation. From my point of view, I have to be professional and I still have to read out the name. So if it's number 7, Luis Suarez, you know, I read it. When the handshake's taking place, that's just, I do the read straight after it. And, you know, you go with it and it, once it moves on, you're into the football game. And that's why we're all there at the end of the day. You don't want anything else clouding it over. But I will tell you an interesting story. When in 2008, the 2008-9 season, after we'd played in the Champions League final against Chelsea, the next time that Chelsea played at Old Trafford, I've never known anything like it in all my life because obviously I always read the away team first. And John Terry, I think, does he wear number 26? Yeah. So obviously he was fairly low down on the list. You know, number 1, Petr Cech, blah, 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 Ashley Cole, whoever else it was. And I've never experienced this before. And I get on to number 26, John Terry. The whole stadium erupted and started cheering and giving a round of applause. I don't know if you've ever noticed on any videos, but because he missed the penalty in the Champions League final, and that was the first time that he'd come back to Old Trafford, and the whole stadium started singing "Viva," not Ronaldo, but John Terry, you know, and you know there is a song there which you probably know about. He missed the penalty. Yeah. So it's always
we sing it on our screenings as well.
Yeah.
We sing it on our screenings as well.
Yeah, correct, exactly. But yeah, so it's always interesting when you get situations like that. So whenever I'd read out John Terry's name, he'd always get a big cheer off the United fans. It was quite surreal. You know, it was different.
Okay, so Alan, obviously you're a United fan. So how difficult is it to announce the name of a rival who has scored for you, and which has been your greatest match so far?
Yeah, it's always difficult with the away team because I mean there is a little bit of it has been said sometimes that when I do read the away team, I do it a little bit lower, you know, because I always say, you know, good afternoon, welcome to Old Trafford and today's teams, you know, and this is before the kickoff, and I'll say, and our visitors today, Sheffield United, you know, and then I'll go number 1, number 2, number 3. And then I'll go through them, and then I come to United. I go, Old Trafford, Manchester United line up this evening. Number 1, David De Gea. You know, and it's all part of the theatre, as I said before. So yeah, I never try and give them too much exposure, but you know, we keep it professional. Did you ask me what was my greatest moment at United?
Yeah, the greatest moment announcing a match at United.
Well, I've had a couple of interesting situations because you might remember 2008, we played Barcelona in the semi-final of the Champions League. And on the night, after 15 minutes, Paul Scholes scored a rasping shot. I don't know if you can remember it, from outside the box.
Remember it every day.
How can we not remember that?
Yeah. Well, the thing about that goal, just to slide into a separate story for a moment. So in 1999, I'd been to most of the away European games as a fan I wasn't the announcer at United. And unfortunately, I never got to go to the final in 1999. So I'd always vowed that if United ever got to another final, wherever it was, wherever it took place, rain, hail or shine, if I had to beg, borrow or steal the money, I was definitely going to the final. So 1999, let's move to 2008. At Old Trafford, the game starts and Barcelona come flying out. They're up for the early goal. And on that night, Messi was absolutely unbelievable. He was amazing that night. But anyway, 15 minutes comes. Paul Scholes hits the back of the net with what a shot it was. So I'm trying to be sort of impartial. I'm going crazy, because United have got one foot in the final of the Champions League in Russia at the Helsinki Stadium. And I've got to say, it was the longest 75 minutes of my life, because every time Messi got the ball, he was dinking, he was diving, he was turning around. It was incredible. And I was so anxious because the one goal was enough, to take us to the final. Anyway, two little things with that. We win the game. I'm ecstatic. I think, great, I'm going to the final. I promised myself in 99 that I'd go to the next Champions League final. And what I didn't realise was that UEFA always asked the announcer from each team to go and represent their clubs at the final. So I got a call the next day to say, you're going to Russia, you're going to Moscow to the Champions League final, everything's paid for, you're going to do the announcements for Man United. So I couldn't believe it, I was absolutely ecstatic. But just a little side story to that. Just before the lockdown, I went and did an event in Atlanta in the USA for the supporters club there. I hosted it, and I did it with Paul Scholes and David May. And it was a brilliant event. It'd be like coming to you guys. It was absolutely fantastic. We had a meal. There was loads of United fans in the room. We did an audience with the two guys. I hosted, asked the questions. I said to Paul Scholes, this is only like before the lockdown here in the UK. I said to Paul, Paul, the longest night of my life as the announcer was against Barcelona when you scored the goal. I said, you scored it at 15 minutes. And I said, every time Messi got the ball, I said, I was a nervous wreck. And he said, this is Paul Scholes. He goes, you were a nervous wreck. He said, I was a nervous wreck. He said, don't forget, he said, I missed 99. So he said, it was just as important to me as it was to you, Alan. We both missed it. And he said, I wanted to be there as well. So it was the longest 75 minutes of my life. He said, they hit us with everything, and somehow we kept them out. So, yeah, great memories, Ismail. I hope I didn't go on too much there. But
No.
Yeah.
Every second listening to you is quite enjoyable.
Yeah,
and on the same topic, obviously, since you've announced so many great matches, how was your reaction in the Manchester derby, the famous one where you had to announce Michael Owen scoring the goal?
Oh, well, I mean, that was just incredible. I mean, they're the moments where when you stood on the sideline, like I'm at the dugout. I don't know if you know where I am, but I normally stand in between the two dugouts. So as I'm looking at the pitch, I've got the United dugout on my right and I've got the away dugout on my left. And we're like dead anxious, and it's against City and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, to be honest, we haven't played brilliant that day, to be fair. And then Owen, like Giggsy sets it through, doesn't he? Slides it through to him. And Owen just puts it in the back of the net. And we all remember how ballistic he went. And, that's where I think my impartiality went out the window. I went hysterical, Old Trafford, United's goal, scored by number 7, Michael Owen, and it's just, I lost it. It was just an unbelievable feeling, when Owen scored that. But, I've had some great moments as well, who'll ever forget Robin Van Persie's volley that Rooney set up for him? Was it against Villa?
Aston Villa, yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine announcing that goal? That was incredible. Or other goals.
The Wayne Rooney bicycle, for example.
Against City as well, yeah. And he goes back into the thing, and does all this, you know.
Yeah.
But also, Ruud van Nistelrooy, you know, when he got the record. I know Vardy equalised it a few seasons ago, but when he got the 10 goals on the consecutive matches, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can remember, it was a penalty.
Yeah.
I'm quite superstitious because whenever we get a penalty, if I put my microphone down, when there's a penalty being taken, I never pick it up first. I'll wait till the ball's hit the back of the net. Just little things like that, you know, where I won't tempt fate. And when Ruud van Nistelrooy took the penalty and he scored it and he broke the record, there used to be a lot more backroom staff who were stood there. They're not as many now.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if you remember. He was like the trainee keeper, for United, but a guy called Tony Colton. Funny enough, he used to play for City. Yeah. But anyway, in all the mayhem, I used to have a bag at the side of the pitch, at the side of the dugout, and I'd rest my mic on it. Anyway, when everybody's going absolutely ballistic and Ruud van Nistelrooy had broken the record, I go down to pick my microphone and it's missing. There's no microphone. It's gone. And it must have been only 20 seconds, but it felt like 10 minutes. I'm flapping around. I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, Ruud van Nistelrooy's broken the record, you know, and I'm not going to be able to announce he's scored a 10th goal. And Tony Colton had picked it up and had it in his pocket and had it big smile on his face, you know. Anyway, he gave it me and I did the announcement. But yeah, some great memories, some fantastic memories.
Looks like you, yeah. Carry on.
Sorry, what's it like when you have an ex-United player coming back, one who's loved a lot by the fans, but also ones who are not so loved? I'm thinking Carlos Tevez going to Manchester City. I'm thinking Angel Di Maria going to Paris. And then I'm thinking people like, you know, Beck's coming back with Milan, or Ronaldo coming back a couple of times with Real Madrid, or even other ex-players. What's it like when you're announcing the ones that aren't so popular, and then you're announcing the ones that the fans love?
Yeah, it's always a tricky one, Hassan, because, you know, Tevez is an interesting name that you mentioned, you know, because you know, Carlos Tevez was loved by the United fans, absolutely adored. I mean, I loved him. And then unfortunately, from a football perspective, he crossed into the dark side and went to Manchester City. And obviously at the time, there was the poster, wasn't there, where there's the picture of him on the poster and welcome to Manchester, you know, and all that went with it. So he never got a good response, as you'd expect. You know, he was somebody who, there was a lot of disappointment with the way that all panned out for whatever reason, whether it was his fault or not his fault or whatever. But yeah, it's always tricky with him. David Beckham, lots of love for David Beckham. You know, when he came back with Paris Saint-Germain, you know, I think he wore number 23. He was very much adored, Becks, you know, and still is, and you know, really, really adored by the United fans. You know, it's interesting. Johnny Evans always gets a nice response. You know, when he comes back, I think he came back with West Brom and obviously with Leicester, and he always gets a nice response. You know, but to tell you a story about Ronaldo, I don't know if you've heard this story, but do you mind me telling it?
No, please.
A lot of people have asked the question that you're going to answer. Is it about the 2013 Champions League match?
Yeah.
I was going to ask this. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I just got to give you the build-up because Sir Alex Ferguson was so meticulous in everything that he did. He was always thinking ahead and he was always forward-thinking. And we had Real Madrid coming up, playing at Old Trafford. I think if my memory serves me right, we played them away first, and then they were coming to Old Trafford. And about 10 days before, we're playing a game on a really miserable, drizzly, rainy night in Manchester. I think it might have been I want to say it was a cup game against Wigan or somebody. You know, it was somebody like that. And it was a 0-0 score at half time, and it was a miserable night, freezing. Anyway, the second half started, and I think it was Nani. Nani got the lead for us, and it was 1-0. So the game's about 75 minutes, and I'm stood where I said next to the dugout, and Fergie's gone in, Sir Alex has gone into the technical area. And the next minute, he's there dictating the team's like, and the next minute he turns round and he goes like that. So anyway, I look up at the dugout that's behind me. I'm thinking, he's not looking to talk to me. Because normally, you know, whoever would be there with him, Rennie Muhlenstein or Mickey Phelan or whatever. So I sort of look behind me and he goes, no, Alan, come here for a minute. And I'm thinking, oh, what did I say in the last announcement? You know, as you walk in them sort of 10 yards, I'm thinking, well, what did I say? Anyway, I knew I was okay. So I'm up in the technical area with him. The game's going on. This is how Sir Alex thinks. I knew I was okay. He put his arm around me and he goes, Alan, he said, I want to have a chat with you about a talk with you about when we play Real Madrid. So I went, yeah, okay, boss. When do you want to speak? He said, oh, we'll speak in the next few days, but remind me, I need to have a word with you. I said, okay, that's fine. So that was the Tuesday or the Wednesday. And as it happens, on the following Friday at Old Trafford, funnily enough, there was a supporters meeting. You know, like they have them every 2 years. So there was a supporters meeting at Old Trafford, and he was one of the guests. Anyway, beforehand, when he's waiting to come on the stage, and I'm going to introduce him, he calls me over, like we're in a sort of back room, and he said, Alan, he said, just talk me through what happens on a Champions League match, because obviously I'm always in the office. I don't see that bit where it all goes when they come out. So I said, well, you know, obviously they come out together, we play the Champions League music. And he said, yeah, right, okay, we're just confirming everything. And I said, I always read the away team first, and then I do United second, you know, to get the momentum. He said, right, yeah, okay. He said, no, let's change that. He said, I want to do United first, and then I want you to do Real Madrid second. And I want you, because you only do the 11, he said, I want you to read out Ronaldo last of the 11. So, you know, and obviously Ronaldo would have been in the middle, number 7. You know, whoever was following, you'd have had Ramos and all them. I said, okay. So anyway, obviously, so he's asking me, trusting me with this responsibility, you know, the greatest manager in the world. So I then go back to the club and the officials and I say, look, Sir Alex has had a word, because, you know, you've got to check these things out. You know, UEFA is an organisation on its own, and we've got to make sure that we're abiding by the rules. Anyway, as it happens, we check it out, and that's great. So the night comes, and the plan of action is that we're going to do Manchester United first. Now, also, which we hadn't planned for, it was Ryan Giggs' 1,000th game for Man United. So if you ever look at the YouTube clip, I go through United, you know, 1, blah, 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 number 10, whatever, Wayne Rooney, and number 11, making his 1,000th, the stadium erupts. And then we say, and now Old Trafford, welcome to our visitors, Real Madrid. You go through it, you know, number 1, Iker Casillas, whoever, going through it all. And then I get down to the last one, the 11th player, and welcome, number 11, number 7, Cristiano. Oh, I've never heard a noise like it in all my life. I mean, Sir Alex Ferguson, it was all about the impact that would have on Cristiano, you know, the love that was shown for him, the emotion, did it have an impact on him, you know, etc., etc. I mean, as it happens, he scored on the night, but if you ever notice it, he didn't celebrate. He just held his hands up and, you know, he won round. So Sir Alex Ferguson, what an inspiration and a brilliant man, and so forward thinking to be looking at that 10 days before on a rainy night in Manchester to think about Ronaldo and introducing him as the last player. It's a brilliant mind game, if you like.
Yeah. My second question, and this is also a very popular one, is also about Sir Alex. You also had to call him out when he announced his farewell. So you were announcing all the trophies that he's won. So how emotional was that?
It was very emotional because there was a lot of preparation for that. You know, where you know, obviously Sir Alex, 26 years, the greatest manager ever, won more trophies than any other manager. You know, such an emotional day because it was so final. You know, that was going to be the last time he was ever going to walk out at Old Trafford. as the Manchester United manager. Obviously, it wouldn't be the last time we'd see him, but as the manager, as the boss. And as you say, there was a script and, made of steel. It came from Govan, a very tough, hard-working area of Scotland. And it was very emotional. And I think when you see the footage, when you see him walking through that guard of honour and, he's got his black coat on and he's just taking it all in his stride. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. It was a very emotional day and just the whole send-off that United did. I think United, them sort of events or those sort of occasions, they always get it right, don't they? I think like when you look at what United have done during lockdown, it's been an amazing situation for the club, with the health service and all the sort of food deliveries and everything else that's been done. I think United get it right. It was a very emotional day that day with Sir Alex. Fortunately, we won as well. We beat, I think it was Swansea, we beat them. So it all ended well.
So, Alan, let's move on to Louis van Gaal. And one of his most famous incidents was when he was trying to explain to the ref that the other player had dived, and then he dived himself on the sidelines. What was your reaction and what was the fan reaction at that point in time?
Well, it's interesting because when I first started at United, where I used to stand in front of the United dugout. And Sir Alex only every now and again would go down to the technical area. He wouldn't stand there all the time, So that was fine. But obviously, we had David Moyes after him. And David Moyes very much was a technical area manager. He stood there a lot. And unfortunately, what in the background, if it was on the telly, you had my sort of serious face there. So I decided to move out of the shot while David Moyes was the manager. So I went more into the middle. Anyway, obviously Louis van Gaal took over. And if you might remember this, but Louis very rarely went into the technical area. He was a manager that stayed in his seat. So when he went down, I mean, you can imagine what I've witnessed over the years. Sir Alex, David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, and Ollie. All different. But then we're stood there and we're seeing, like Sir Alex would go down and confront the referees, but he'd always do it. He'd never if you ever notice with Sir Alex, he'd never very rarely go to the technical area where the referee was. He'd always do it when they were stood back. But Louis went into the technical area. I think it was Mike Dean. The referee. Yeah. We were absolutely flabbergasted. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in football. And I'm so glad the camera wasn't on me because I saw it and I went, what has just happened? Has that really happened at Old Trafford when he went down? And it was absolutely hilarious in the South Stand because they saw it first, obviously, or could see it clearer. They were all hysterical, the noise and the reaction was absolutely hilarious, But that was Louis van Gaal. I mean, he was a great fella, Louis. He was a fantastic fella and a really nice guy. And he was great, when you did anything with the fans or, we did the Christmas light switch on or I did an event in Munich with him and he was absolutely brilliant, Louis. He told it as it was, that was the way he was with Louis. Found him a very straightforward and honest guy. But that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen at the dugout. It was hilarious.
But you also had to contend with him on the Players Award ceremony.
Yeah, well, yeah, that night again I was there for that because when they do the awards, I'm what they call the voice of God. So, like, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host Hassan and Ishmael. And you do all that sort of stuff for whoever is doing the presenting of the evening. So I'm like giving it, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage, whoever's doing it, Mark Chapman and whoever. So on that night, I'm doing the voice of God and we're at the side and there's all screens and everything. And again, he's just such good value for money because I think it'd be fair to say that Louis had a couple of too many wines that night. And I think that Giggsy had rounded up a bit as well, So, I mean, it was just good value for money, that.
Alan, we've noticed it's something that we've spoken about in all of the shows, but at Manchester United, there is one of the things we're very proud of is our history of playing youth. youth products coming into the team. We're going 70 plus years with someone from the academy always being involved in the match squad. What's it like when a younger player comes through and starts to do well? So in this case, I'm thinking Rashford's unlikely debut because Martial gets injured. Now we've got Mason, we've got Brendan, coming through. Is the fan reaction you feel, with a local Mancunian boy, a local United fan, is there a little bit more of a connection between them and the fans when you announce it? Is there more excitement or more happiness, so to speak? I'm not saying they're not happy to see Paul Pogba or they're not happy to see David De Gea, but someone who's born and raised a United fan, the fans obviously relate to them. Is there more excitement or happiness to see them being a part of the team?
Yeah, I think what you get with that is, and I think if we take Brandon Williams, for example, I think Brandon has come in and he's hit the ground running and he's taken his opportunity. He's still learning. We understand that. I mean, he would probably play against Norwich. But I think with what the fans do with them type of players, they're a lot more, I think, patient. They'll give a little bit more.
So more forgiving.
Yeah. If he makes a mistake, they are more forgiving. They're not on his case. They're not looking at him thinking, what's he doing? And that's where I think a lot of the United fans are very, very patient with the homegrown talent, as they call it. I mean, Rashford, what an incredible debut and story he had, and then scoring and breaking records. Every time he played in whatever it might have been, the Europa League or the FA Cup, or all those records that he broke, youngest player to do X, Y, and Z. And I think the fans have been aware of Mason for quite a while coming through, because obviously the U team now on MUTV gets more exposure. They show all the games and there's a lot more action going on. So I think, with the homegrown players, there's certainly a lot more time given and understanding, because, Mason, as you say, Brandon and obviously Rashford, just to name three, that they've hit the ground running, and the future looks good. But there's a few others coming through that you could say are looking very promising, and hopefully we'll see those come through and they'll get the opportunity. There's a lot of hope for James Garner. Obviously he was injured a while ago, but James has come back and he's just got to take his chance when he gets it. Because it's a very tough game, isn't it? We go back to Louis van Gaal, and he showed belief in Cameron Borthwick-Jackson, didn't he? He let him come in because he'd had defensive difficulties, and unfortunately, it's not worked out for Cameron because he went out on loan. He never really got back in after Louis left, and sadly, this week he was released. By United. So it's a tough journey. So yes, Sam, I think the homegrown talent, they definitely get a bit more time and patience.
Okay, so Aaron, if we speak about your journey with FIFA, how many years has it been, and what's the actual process with it? And have you already started working on FIFA 21?
Okay, yeah. Well, it was an interesting situation because EA Sports, who make the game, they're based in Canada, and I received this email. The very first one I was on was 2017. So I've done 17, 18, 19, and 20. So I got an email, but it was a very random email just asking me, was I interested in auditioning? They were interested in using my voice for the Premier League. Was I interested? So I looked at this email and I sort of thought, is it spam? Because there was no logos at the bottom. It was just like, it could have been Ismail Tayyab and that was it. There was nothing related to EA Sports or anything. So what I did, I copied and pasted his name into Google, and it flashed up that this guy was the content director for EA Sports in Canada. So I thought, well, I better take this email serious. So I emailed back and said, oh yes, I'm very interested. I'd love to be involved. What's the next stage? Blah blah blah. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we came to an agreement, and they wanted me to be the Premier League announcer. So, which is very, very funny for me, because if you want to have my voice, I can be on at City, Liverpool, Chelsea, because I'm the Premier League announcer. They've not quite gone round every single announcer in the Premier League, you see. So they used me as the Premier League announcer, and then another guy, a lad called Dominic from Burnley, they used him for the Championship. He does the FIFA voice for that. But yeah, it was an incredible project because I had to go in the studio for 4 days, and you're recording every single name of every player from the Premier League, as I briefly mentioned before. So, but the way they wanted it, the director, he had me on Skype, and I'm in the booth with the headphones on, and he's like us guys now. He's directing it. You know, he wanted high tempo, and then he wanted low and mellow. So I had to do a read for each team twice. So basically, you know, I had to go like, I'm playing for, let's just say it was Manchester United. And it was this level, you'd go, Ismail Tayyab. Number 9, Hassan Qureshi. Number 11, Tradisla Yousaf. And then you'd go, and number 8 for Manchester United, Ismail Tayyab. And number 10, Hassan Qureshi. And number 11, Tradisla Yousaf. You had to do it high, and you had to do it low. And you see, obviously, if I give you an example, Lukaku was playing for Everton at the time. Now, can any of you remember what number he wore playing at Everton?
15.
Was it 14, 15, 17, something like that?
Yeah, it wasn't like the main number 9 or whatever.
Yeah. No.
So, and then what happened was, or he might actually, I think he got
17, I think.
Yeah, it was a weird number. So what you had to do when you're recording it, and it's, you know, so you had to do it like this. So I'm doing the Everton team, we've done all that, and then you go, number 17, gap, Romelu Lukaku, because they needed to edit. So anyway, that was with a load of players. But what they made me do as well was every championship team, because I recorded it in the January before it came out in the September. So what they do is you record it, but obviously they don't know which 3 teams are going to get promoted. So they cover every aspect. But obviously with Lukaku, he was at Everton, and they've got to allow for changes. So I had to do like numbers 1 to 50. Number 1, number 2, number 3, you know, because then when Lukaku joined United, was he number 9?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but at Everton, he was a different number. So all these permutations, you know, so I'd obviously done the read of the name, Romelu Lukaku, but I'd not done the numbers. So they edited all that together. I don't want to bore you too much about the Trafford, but it's how they put it together. It's the nearest thing to a feature film, because they're working on it that long, and the graphics and the design and the production team, and I'm just a little part of it, you know. So I've had a great run with FIFA, and it's been a wonderful journey.
Firstly, can I say, Alan, having you said my name as 9 and 10, I'm going to record that and send it to my brothers. I'm going to send it to them for at least 6 months every day. I'm going to WhatsApp it to them, just loving it. Next time they want to play me at FIFA, I'm going to say, I had Alan Keegan say my name, say 9 and 10. So there you go. So thank you for that. Firstly,
you're welcome. No problem.
If I can go back to when you started at United, 2000, 2001, when we won the league, what's it been like with the different times that United have had a chance to lift the trophy, the Premier League trophy, at home? Because if I'm not wrong, that year, I remember especially Keno getting pretty worked up about the fact that we'd won the league. We'd won it at a canter. We lost the last 3 games. I think we lost the last game to Derby at home. And then, of course, you know, we're lifting the trophy. But you don't care about the fact that you've lost, but you're lifting. So the days that we've lifted the trophy at home, what's the mood been like, and has your preparation been different? Because irrespective of the result, it's a celebration.
Oh yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, and you know, you only realise now, because to be honest, you get a little bit. It becomes a little bit of a familiar thing with United in the early days, you know. So obviously, I've not done that for 7 years, you know, and it's going to probably be 8 years. So yeah, I mean, the preparation is immense, because obviously they've got to play the game, and in many ways, I mean, I think I'm right, but I've never been at where we've had it lifted at home, where we had to win the game to win the league at home, you know. And I think the game becomes a little bit secondary, because there is so much preparation, because the match finishes, you know, you've got to let the away team show their respects to their fans. And then obviously the Premier League, it's such a tightly oiled machine, and it's so coordinated, because you'll have different situations. You might remember it's all on a timer. They've got to set the stage up. You know, there's a big team there. There's a big setting up of the stage, the rig, everything else. You've got all the situation where, you know, it's all timed. It's done for television. And then you'll have a soldier maybe coming out with all the medals on a cushion. You know, there's a parade. I might have to read the backroom staff onto the pitch, you know, who played their part. You might have to read the fringe players. They walk onto the pitch. You know, it's like a roll of honour, you know. So, yeah, it's definitely a very sort of tightly run schedule for the day when you're presented with the trophy. And I've been very fortunate, because I've also done it away, where we were presented with the trophy. You might remember a few years ago, when we got presented with it at Everton. And I'll tell you what was great about the Everton fans. I've got to say, 2/3 of the stadium stayed behind to watch the presentation, you know. And also, it got presented, you might remember, at Wigan, which was quite surreal, you know, because it was a dead small, tight ground, and you couldn't get tickets for the game, you know, and all the United fans wanted to go. So, yeah, it's an amazing feeling to announce, you know, you'll have a script and everything else, and you've got to do each player as they go up and as they receive the medal, you know, and then you say at the end, and they've got all the fanfare and the ticker tape and everything else, you know, congratulations to the Premier League champions, Manchester United, you know, and it's just an unbelievable feeling, and I can't wait to do it again.
I'm into that.
Yeah.
Alan, I'd like to ask, how hard is it to contain yourself when United score one of their trademark extra time winners?
Well, yeah, I mean, that, you know, we go back to what you mentioned before with Michael Owen, you know, it's been unbelievable. And I'll tell you something else as well. Over those years, it became expected, didn't it? If United went 1-0 down, you know, you thought, oh, well, we've got time, we'll pull it back, you know, and it was always expected that we'd get, you know, a goal in Fergie time, you know, it's one of those situations. So I've had some great memories where, you know, we've pulled it out of the hat, and we've won games in the last minute, or, you know, we've won games that were going against us, and all of a sudden you pull them back, and it's been incredible. I mean, I've not always been the announcer of them, because some of them have been away, obviously, you know. I mean, if you look at PSG last year, or the year before, I should say, the season before, how brilliant was that, you know, with Rashford and the free kick and things like that, you know. So, yeah, there's been some great memories down with the extra time, or Fergie time, as we called it.
Okay, so Alan, I only have 2 questions left, because before Hassan asked his question, first of all, there are 4 requests from 4 fans who are asking you to name names. So can I send you a message?
Yeah, you want me to give them a mention?
Yes, I'll just send you a message right now on Zoom, if you can check it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I just sent it.
Right. Let me just get this.
One is my son, and the other is Hassan's son, and there are 2 fans.
Okay, then can you pop it up again?
Yeah, of course.
So it's just gone off.
If you just look where it says chat,
Yeah.
just below
Okay.
the screen, you should be able to find it.
Yeah, I've got it. No problem. So is it Naaman Zahir?
No, man.
No, man, yeah.
Yeah.
No, man, yeah.
Okay, here we go. For Manchester United, number 10, Noman Zahir.
He's going to be over the moon.
Okay. Is it Musa Hash?
Musa Hashmi.
Hashmi.
Yeah, and he wants his number first, yeah? All right.
Yeah.
You want the Manchester United bit as well?
Yeah.
Only, please.
Yeah. For Manchester United, number 69, Musa Hashmi. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
perfect.
Yeah, that works.
Brilliant.
And is that Zidane?
Yeah, I named my son Zidane, so that he doesn't have any choice other than following football.
Yeah. Great player. Okay. Do you want the United bit in, or is he?
Yeah, no, United, no other choice.
They're paid up members, Alan. Both of them, his kid and mine. They're
Brilliant.
paid up members already.
Okay, that's what we like. And number 10 for Manchester United, Zidane Ismail.
And then 10 for my boy.
Are you happy with the Ismail?
Perfect.
Perfect. I'm telling you, it's better than when his mum named him.
Zayan. Okay, so it's like Zayan. Qureshi.
Qureshi's great.
Yeah, it's split on the screen, you see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And number 10 also, please.
Yeah. I'll do it 2 ways.
Perfect.
And number 10 for Manchester United, Zayan Qureshi. And then we'll go. For Manchester United, number 10, Zayan Qureshi.
Oh, Alan, I'm going to send this to my brothers twice now. All day is going to be spent sending stuff to my brothers.
Fantastic.
It's been brilliant.
Put it on your phone. Put it on your phone.
It'll only be on my phone, day and night.
No
You're not going to see the end. Unbelievable.
Okay, so Alan, obviously you spoke about Sammy McIlroy, so that would be our last request. So can you talk to him and ask him to come on our show?
Yeah, how often do you do these?
Whenever a legend agrees. We did 2 yesterday. Luke Chadwick came and Brian McClure came. So whenever someone gives us the time, whether it's 5 a.m. in the morning, we're up.
Wow.
Chucky had us up at 10 a.m. and we said, no worries, Chucky. It's the earliest I've woken up in the lockdown, but for Chucky, you wake up when he tells you to wake up.
Yeah, I agree. No, I'll definitely have a word with Sammy for you, because he's a dead good talker, and he speaks very well, and he's got some good stories, you know, because obviously he played for Manchester United, but he played for Northern Ireland, and you know, he was the last of the Busby Babes, so he's a good speaker, Sammy, and he's a nice fella, you know. So
it'd be brilliant.
I'll set that up. Don't worry, I'll have a word with Sammy. And
thank you.
Do you only do it on Zoom?
Yeah. It's easiest on Zoom. Yeah.
Okay.
And Alan, can I just say on behalf of all of us, what an absolute honor and a privilege it's been to speak to you. Everyone we've spoken to, we've just been blown away with the kindness of everyone associated with United, with the love you all have for the fans and how amazing you are to us. You know, it reconfirms our belief that we're very lucky to follow this amazing club where everyone is part of a huge family. You hear it from other places, but you don't feel it the way we feel it with you guys. And we've been making it a point to tell all of our guests that hopefully when things settle down, when things get a little bit better, we'll have you over, love to have you to come visit Pakistan. Because as we tell all our other guests, the food is much better than India, so you want to come here. And when things are better and the weather is good, we'd love nothing more than to host you.
Yeah, well, listen, it'd be a real pleasure, and thank you very much indeed. It's been enjoyable. I hope a few people have looked in, but it's been great.
Everyone's looked in. The page is full and they've loved every minute.
If you just allow me to tell you the names that have come on, Norman Whiteside, Alex Stepney, Ben Thornley, Keith Gillespie, David May, and there have been 7 or 8 others. And none have reached the viewing figures that you've given us. Not a single one.
Well, that's great. I'm pleased to know. And listen, guys, we'll do it again sometime in the future. You know, I'd love to come back. And
we'd love to.
Yeah,
we'd love to have you on board again. Thank you so much.
No problem. Listen, take care and look after yourselves. And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks
Stay safe.
Alan.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Glory, Man United.
Glory, Man United. Take care. Thank you.